Hello, Radiant Soul, and welcome to episode 14 of the Devotional Drip, where we will be exploring integrating the past and surrendering to your highest path now. If you're catching this around the time it's released, it's the last week of Pisces season. We're going to resource and utilize the intelligence of water as a symbol of consciousness to rinse and clear and renew and baptize and anoint so that we can reconcile and open to receive what is here for us now. There's a lot of new energy, and there's also, because of this new energy, a lot of invitation to integrate past energy that hasn't yet had the chance to have the depth of higher self-awareness, light, and presence on it that it's ready for. So that's going to be different for all of us, where we're at inside of that, what within us is currently tender and asking for visibility, presence, and compassion. So that's where we're going to go today. We are integrating the past to create space for the highest path available to us now and in every present moment. If you're catching this for the first time, hello, welcome to the Devotional Drip. The Devotional Drip is a free weekly higher self-embodiment and personal development coaching series for creatives, leaders, visionaries, and light workers. The intention of this series is to support you in igniting your higher self-connection, embodying your higher self-expression, and inspiring your multidimensional self-care practice across the altars of your personal and professional life, so that you can meet the big call of your divine purpose. And all of us share the same divine purpose to become more love. And then we all have our own unique assignments inside of that. And we do this work so that we can meet the bigness, the call, the hugeness. It feels so big today, of our divine purposes embodied in our peace, power, and higher self-stewardship, which is also to say self-leadership. I coach a lot around self-leadership, and our capacity to do that through merging our human self with our divine self, and not cutting ourselves off from either wisdom, either not cutting ourselves off from any parts of us. Because even the parts that are still in confusion, even the parts today that are unintegrated and kind of those, like, I'm almost seeing like a string dangling in the wind, like even that thread is presenting itself to bring us to a solution. So yeah, that's what we do on the Devotional Drip. My name is Sarah. If we have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, I'm a higher self-embodiment doula. So I support you in birthing your higher self-expression in your human body, somatically embodying the spiritual reality of your higher self in your blood and bones. That is the spell of blood, bone, and honey. I'm also a multi-passionate artist. I'm a photographer and a filmmaker and a performance artist and a dancer and a writer. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also a coach and consultant. I offer somatic, artful, playful, devotional, and sensual portals into self-care, self-healing, spiritual awakening, self-leadership, higher self-expression, and higher self-embodiment. We go live every Monday at 12 p.m. for the drip, and a replay is always sent out to the newsletter coven. So if you've not yet joined the newsletter coven and you're finding us here on YouTube for the first time, or your higher self led you here, be sure to click the link below in the description and join the newsletter coven. You will get this replay if you join this week. And then if you're catching this at a later date, you'll get whatever replay is going out at that point. And you'll always get a link to the blog as well, which will have journal prompts, movement prompts, and a practice playlist to help you integrating what comes forward for you through this drip. Before I dive in, I do want to say I'm opening the portal for private mentorship, as well as branding, higher self-embodied branding for the spring and the summer. So if you're interested in working one-on-one, either in coaching and consulting and mentorship arena, or you're looking for higher self-embodied photo spells for your brand, for your business, then feel free to shoot me an email, Sarah with an H at bloodboneandhoney.com, to get on the wait list. You can also drop, hey, would love to connect about this in the comments, and drop your email and I can reach out to you as well. So whatever you prefer. I'll be talking more about that this week on Instagram. I'm at Blood, Bone, and Honey on Instagram if we aren't connected there yet. And I will also be sending out some info to the newsletter. Last thing, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and you can turn on the alarm bell to be notified when we go live. All right. Integrating the past and surrendering to your highest path. I feel the call to just invite anyone who's watching live or on the replay. If you'd like to, you can be in some investigation with yourself, or you can drop in the comments. What about that is automatically sparking something for you? Why did you even show up today? What about this topic resonated for you? And again, it's integrating the past and surrendering to your highest path. Where are you at? How did that code hit you? From what place in your journey, in your emotional spectrum, in your multidimensionality, are you finding this? How are you doing? How are you feeling? So just getting on the couch in the background, my puppy dog with her little jangly collar. Thank you for the bells, Soji. Thank you for the bells of sovereignty, my love. So yeah, let me know first and foremost how that's hitting for you off the bat. I pulled 6 oracle cards for us today. My higher self actually was guiding me to approach this drip a little different. You know, we're all getting upgrades right now, and this is actually the way that I read oracle cards when I work one-on-one with people, and when I'm pulling cards for members of my coven. So we're going to go through these 6 oracle cards. They're weaving a story. It is pretty clear what's going on. And I've made some notes for each of them, and then I'm also just going to let the channel flow. So for integrating the past and surrendering to your highest path, the first card coming forward is past lives. Past lives. There's a lot being cleared right now in our waking state and our dream state. Has anyone had really intense dreams recently? Have you been getting messages in your dreams? Does anyone here dream journal? If there's anything that's been coming through, feel free to share. There's a lot being cleared right now in our waking state and our dream state. This card points to subconsciously revisiting past lives in our dream state. So undigested emotions, hurt, betrayal from the past may be showing up and causing stuff in this lifetime. I just realized that I left my computer charger upstairs and my battery just said, my computer just said low battery. BRB, meditate on that for a second. What's that for you? What feels ancient within you? What is tender that also feels so old? And we can go past lives, like past lives lineage of our ancestors. We can go past lives, our own soul as a part of our larger oversoul and sort of like galactic past lives. And then we can also go like the past lives that we lived within this lifetime. It can feel like we've lived many lives within this lifetime, perhaps, especially if you've been walking a path of ascension and awakening since you hit the planet, which pretty much everyone in the Blood, Bone, and Honey community has been. So I'm going to grab my computer charger, meditate on that for a second. BRB. You also get to see my cute skirt. What's up? Let's hope the computer doesn't die. Okay, we're back. It actually wasn't upstairs. It was just in the living room. I'm spread out across the whole house right now because my husband is in California. For work. So I am just utilizing the whole temple. Okay, there we go. I also noticed the video was lagging a little bit, so this should help. Okay, getting back to past lives. So subconsciously reliving this energy signature in our present reality right now. Again, whether this be our galactic lineage, whether this be our human lineage, whether this be like in our lifetime right now, all of these lives and versions of ourselves that we've lived, what's currently feeling undigested. Whatever is feeling undigested, whatever is feeling tender, that's the coursework right now. That's the coursework right now. It's like if you had a class in school and it was feeling especially high sensation, that's where you resource some tutoring. That's where you resource some guidance. This card and this entire reading is pointing to that texture in that place within you. So on the ancestral front, what inherited ancestral patterns are ready to clear within you? What is your coursework? Life is a mystery school and class is always in session. You were an egg in your mother's womb when she was in your grandmother's womb. You were an egg in your mother's womb when she was in your grandmother's womb. That means that you are imprinted with the consciousness of your ancestors. And you can connect to your ancestors through your blood, through your bones, through your DNA. All of this wisdom lives in your body. We don't go out for ancestral or past life connection. We go in. The same goes for our higher self. But this is a rewiring of the programming, whether it be religious, non-religious, new age, or something completely different. There's been a lot of programming that we need to go outside of ourselves, and we need to work with someone in order to access this wisdom within. You are the shaman. You are the teacher. You are the guide. You are the master. What I'm witnessing is happening right now on planet Earth is that we are all embodying our higher selves now, whether we consciously know that to be true or not. A lot of consciousnesses are having like a massive resistance to that, because to surrender an addiction to suffering and the illusion of separation from the source that we come from, and open up your heart and let that light reach you in the darkest places, is such a vulnerable process. It is so vulnerable to open to love, to open to support, to open to our peace, to open to our power, when perhaps the programming has been in antithesis to that. And we've been told we need to go seek permission. You are the master. Helen is saying, today's area is so amazing. 101 days before I start looking for my little one, the need to integrate the ancestry in the past is coming in hot. Yes, Helen, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah, this reading is super timely for me as well. I've been in the thread with a lot of people in the Blood, Bone, and Honey community, past clients, new clients. I've also been invited by my higher self to tend to a lot of altars of my friendships and connections with cosmic sisters. And there is this reoccurring theme right now of like, oh shit, we're relating master to master now. We're relating higher self to higher self. And that is the best news. And also letting that light in can feel physically painful. It can feel like your heart is breaking, actually. But the truth is your heart never actually breaks. It's whatever whatever's been coding the heart, whatever old identity or self-concept or beliefs that have been around it, that's what's actually cracking. That's what's actually breaking. The ego is learning to integrate with the heart. And we're understanding that we can co-create with our mind, body, heart, and spirit, that these parts of us don't have to be in opposition. And in fact, the most holy thing about us is our humanity. And that, for me personally, and my religious programming, that is in complete opposition to what I learned growing up. So this is big work. This is huge work. So you're soaked in the codes of your ancestors. You are the living embodiment of your ancestors. You can talk to your ancestors through your blood, bones, and DNA. And I'm going to invite you for this card to be in that investigation around your coursework. Pull some oracle cards for yourself, or tarot cards or medicine cards for yourself around that, or do some journaling, some automatic writing, some channel writing with your higher self around that. What is my coursework right now? Resource your teachers, your ancestors, your guides, your higher self, and also your past selves are actually your teachers. Your past self is your teacher, just like your future self is your teacher, just like your now self is your teacher. But in order to resource that as our right to tap into, we have to activate in our higher self consciousness to understand that we have a right to be our own highest guides. So, there is like a before and after picture that I'm being guided to here. This is how I once did things, and this is how I'm doing things now. And I'm not going to judge the way that I used to do things because that's just the way I used to do things. I did things that way because that was all my past self had available to them in terms of how to approach my life. And now I'm going to resource what I've learned, and I'm getting especially over these last 2 years. Don't act like you haven't grown. Resource what it is that you've learned. Get clear about what your lessons were. Get clear about what the blessings were. There are never any lessons that are separate from the blessing. Lessons are actually blessings, but it's our responsibility to understand what the blessing is, or to resource a mentor or a coach or a guide to help us understand that blessing, because sometimes it can be hard to see. Sometimes it can be hard to see. So in our mastery, then we say like, okay, I need team around this. This thing I'm integrating right now is feeling really tender, and I'm going to allow myself the support, whether that be your own ancestors or that be a coach, a mentor, a guide. So this is how I did things before. This is how I'm doing them now. No judgment of how past self did it, so that you can resource the wisdom from your past self. If you're judging your past self, then that's you in opposition with yourself. If we want to stop war in the world, we got to take accountability for our own wars with our own hearts and what we go around thinking and saying to ourselves all day long. This brings me right back to the quality of our self-talk. And if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you don't actually have the resourcefulness to pull from, then my love, the last episode of the devotional drip is for you. It's all about recharging your light and the importance of the cave and the importance of going inside to recharge and then emerge anew. Don't ask an exhausted nervous system, heart, mind, and body to come up with new solutions. Rest first and then return to whatever your coursework is in front of you. Trust the divine timing and don't judge yourself for moving too slowly. I'm hearing a lot of that right now in the field, people feeling like they need to catch up, move at a certain pace. Anyone right now who is rushing, moving fast, getting the things done, blah, 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 that is old paradigm stuff. We're not doing that anymore. And if you're rushing, if you're pushing, if you're forcing, if you're gripping, it will lead you to a dead end in the labyrinth and on your path so that you can be redirected. Now we are learning how to work with the consciousness of ease. Even when things feel so hard. I'm getting like, oh, the quivering, like, oh, this feels so hard. How do I find ease when it feels so hard? This is where the surrender piece is going to come in. This is where I used to do things now. I used to do things this way, and now I'm going to do things in a new way. This card is also inviting you to be clear about your AM and PM energetic hygiene. I think was it Mark Groves? Someone, I was watching a reel yesterday and someone said, would you allow 100 people to come into your bedroom first thing in the morning? And that's what we're actually doing when we like open our phones first thing from bed. It's like we're inviting all of this energy and all of this consciousness into our space. And so be clear about your AM and PM routine. This card specifically invites you to imagine yourself bathed in a golden light and ask your angels and your guides and your higher self to guide you while you sleep. And ask that you awaken. May I awaken? May I awaken? Here's the prayer. May I awaken each new day with joy and love in my heart. And may I give thanks to the healing that is taking place. Be careful when you're labeling a healing a problem or a healing a block. Healing is tender. It is nonlinear. We need to allow the healing to take place. The more we allow, the more we surrender, the more we open to that feeling of like, I feel like I'm going to actually split in half and die if I let the light reach me this deeply, if I let the light of my own awareness, if I take this much responsibility for my own life, for my own circumstance, if I do this thing that's so scary for me. I set such a scary boundary last week, you guys. I thought I was actually going to die because it was representative for me of all of the times I hadn't set that same texture of boundary. This was old and ancient. This was old and ancient. I could feel where this was present for me in my own human journey in this lifetime, and how it was representative of a deep, deep, deep inner child healing. And when I set the boundary, it came in stages. The healing came in like 3 different stages. First, I set a smaller boundary and the cords got cut. Then I set the bigger boundary, and it was like the waters of compassion poured in, because the bigger boundary, the fiercer boundary, always comes from our own self-compassion and forgiveness practice. Because to set a boundary, to do something new we've never done before, that requires us to radically be on our own teams. So I could feel this lifetime, I could feel this quantum healing for my past selves and my future self showing up for my past self. I could feel that getting healed. And then I could also feel the way that this is also present for me inside of my own like human lineage, my ancestral human lineage within the humanity of my blood and bones and cells. And I could feel where this was an anointing for my mother and my grandmother and my great-great-grandmother and my great-great-great, all the way back. We can, when we set the boundary, when we surrender, when we open to the deep healing, we are healing our lineage backwards and forwards. And that is a quantum healing. So it's that big of a deal. And you're not doing it for the first time. That also came through this week. Like, even though, yes, if you're a light worker right now, you're doing huge cleanup work that's needed to be done for literal centuries. And also, you have wise and well-healed ancestors. You know where I heard this? I heard that piece and the other piece. That wasn't Mark Groves. It was from a podcast that my friend sent me, that I will just pull up right now and tell you what it is, because it's so good. This podcast was called, so it's the Psychedelic Leadership Podcast, and it's episode 43, Ancestral Healing for the Leaders of Our Time, with Tori Feldman. Episode 43 on the the Psychedelic Leadership Podcast. It's such a good podcast. It was sent to me by a friend. Thank you for sending that, dear sister, if you're watching. And that is actually what I was listening to this weekend. And then these cards came through. So if you're looking for some additional conversation specifically around ancestral healing, that conversation was great. And Tori Feldman is like absolute master in their practice of ancestral healing. So that's a little extra resource if you want to dive in. Okay, I'm like really harping on this past lives card. Let's go to the next one. Last thing I'm going to say before that is remember AM, PM hygiene, AM, PM energetic hygiene. Let that golden light drip into your body. My yoga teacher, Nina, says our job is to exhale. Our job is to exhale. So practice being in the authority of your exhale, and exhale out all of the old, all of the past. At night, you can practice exhaling your day. And then see if you can wait, maybe just for a couple of counts. Maybe you just hold for a few counts at the very bottom, squeezing all of that old air out. Not even squeezing, I want to say surrendering all of that old breath out. And then watch how the universe comes to fill you. That's been one of my deepest somatic practices recently, especially when it comes to my perfectionism and I don't even want to call it my perfectionism, because I'm not owning it anymore. I'm going to say my tendencies towards perfecting and control and micromanaging. What I'm noticing is that somatic practice of really allowing myself to be filled on the in-breath is teaching my body and my consciousness and my brain how to wait to receive, how to wait to respond. So if that supports you, you can try that out for yourself. Okay, the next card coming forward is the Scorpion. The Scorpion is passionate. The Scorpion is competitive and tends towards isolation. The Scorpion is very determined. Their career is important to them. Maybe a few select inner circle close friends. This is also deeply how I just see mystics in general. You know, like we're passionate, we're determined, we're in our vocation. Light workers tend to have small inner circles, but then larger circles of the larger community that they're serving and showing up for and co-creating with. So this feels like very light worker oriented. And this card points to a Scorpion's heat festering over unresolved issues of an event from the past. This came right after the past lives card. I'm actually reading the cards in the order that they came forward. So that festering energy, that like I know this so deeply. It's almost like you can't stop thinking about it. It's like the intrusive thought, the heat, the fire, the anger, this unresolved energy that feels almost like poison in the system is what I'm getting. Usually this is from a situation where we were left feeling burned, or like we didn't speak our truth, or like we were wronged in some kind of way. The Scorpion card says it's time to come clean about your feelings, so that everyone can heal and you can get back to utilizing your fire in a way that serves you versus like reaching that tail around and burning your own head. Because that's what happens when we don't resolve some of this old energy from the past, right? It's going to come back. And I don't like bite us in the ass. I feel like that's some like programmed thing in my brain from talking about the past, because I actually don't believe that's the nature of life. I believe that life is love, and if we're living in alignment with life, then this heat, this internal heat, is here to show us what's ready to burn, to be purified. There's also a lot of essence of purification happening right now. And can you allow your heart to be purified? What if the fire, what if the burn, what if the sacred holy shake? It's like I'm getting an image of someone doing like push-ups. What if part of like the burn of building the new muscle tone is actually also part of the greatest healing? So don't burn yourself with this fire. Stop burning yourself. Stop burning yourself. Don't light yourself on fire, and don't light the things in your life on fire. Let the holy sacredness of your fire and whatever is unresolved bring you to the altar of your deepest healing. If there's a boundary to set, if there's a conversation to be had, and maybe the boundary is there to be set between you and you. Like, yes, to setting boundaries with other people in our lives, but oftentimes that boundary is going to be real unclear if you haven't already gotten clear on your own boundaries with your own heart. And be mindful if you're asking other people to honor your boundaries when you're not even honoring your own boundaries. That's some shit. That's some shit. Yeah, that comes up with my partner and I. My coach said to me, this was a while ago, but she was like, when the two of you start really taking accountability and ownership for your own stuff, you'll stop pointing your fingers at each other. And I think that's true for any relationship, you know? And we always have a right to also share our feelings and be like, this hurt me and this is not cool for me. But then be mindful if like you say that and then someone's already showed you who they are and they're not able to actually meet you there, and you're expecting them to meet you in a place that they've historically showed you they don't have the capacity or the consciousness to meet you there yet. Lightworkers, stop trying to heal people through becoming friends with them and dating them. Your job is not to heal people. Your job is to heal yourself. And then from your healing, go out, teach, lead, and shine your light. We're not here to save people. We're not here to save people. I am not here to save anybody. We can't actually do that because the path is built on sovereignty. And once we put on our own seatbelts and we drink some water and we're resourced, then we can show up and we can share the waters of our wisdom. But we're not here to heal people. You may be embodying the archetype of the healer, and you may be a healer, but you are a healer for your own heart. And everyone is actually their own greatest healer. So can you embody and own the fact that you're a healer so deeply that you actually honor that other people are also their own healer? And again, it comes back to like, we're relating higher self to higher self now. We're relating master to master. Whether this person is a friend or a romantic partner or a client, master to master. That's how we're doing it. So in terms of the Scorpion card says it's time to come clean about your feelings so that everyone can heal and you can get back to utilizing your fire in alignment with creation. We're about to come into Aries season. What do you want to create? When we're utilizing our internal fire, and we're feeding the fires of anger and aggression and resentment and jealousy and bitterness and all of the unresolved stuff, then we can't actually use that fire for our own transformation and our creation because we're so hyper focused on this thing right here. When out of balance, this card presents as jealous, resentful, and unresolved. When in balance, there's a wildness, there's a freeness, I can use this fire on behalf of my highest good. And stop burning yourself before we get to Aries season, because the heat's only going to get turned up. So practice this week harnessing your heat, allowing this anger or resentment or whatever is inside of you right now asking to be purified, to be a part of that purification process, so that once we get to Aries season, you can create. You can start using that fire to create. Fire cooks, fire warms, fire transforms. Something from one state of being to another. So let any internal burn transform you from the inside out. Keep your eyes on your own paper, honor your sovereignty. And if you have something to communicate to someone else that feels tender, use self-accountable language. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them, believe them, believe them. Even if you can hold their highest good, even if you can hold their highest potential, believe what they're telling you and what they're showing you of themselves right now. This is a huge theme. That is also part of healing codependency. That's also part of you honoring your own sovereignty so you can honor the sovereignty of other people. If you're one of my clients, you've heard me read this a million times from the Sophia Code. This is just what needs to happen today. I'm reading from page 249. It's the passage about Kuan Yin is our mentor. If you've never heard of the Sophia Code, it's an incredible codex. There's ascended masters that are here and ready and available to work with you. Great tool for any mystic, light worker, creative leader on your journey to have as a part of your tool belt, which is also something that came forward in this reading that I'll get to in a little bit. But I just want to speak to compassion, forgiveness, and acceptance. And let me tell you what, y'all, this is huge third eye stuff. When you're holding on to something, in terms of forgiveness, compassion, and acceptance, and the forgiveness, the compassion, and the acceptance is like, that's when you know the waters of compassion. That's when you know the waters of forgiveness. That's when you know the waters of acceptance are trying to meet you. And I'm just going to invite Kuan Yin's energy into the space. Kuan Yin is a Tibetan goddess of compassion, Buddhist goddess of compassion. They are the ultimate bodhisattva, which means that part of their path is being an awakened human on earth, embodying their fully human and fully divine self in order to create a pathway for their own heart and therefore a pathway for humanity. And Kuan Yin lived through some shit. Let me tell you what. Kuan Yin's journey was not easy. Kuan Yin's journey was full of pain and suffering. And it is actually through that pain and suffering that Kuan Yin arrived at her deepest healing. So I'm just going to read, we're going to read like 2.5 pages, maybe just 2 pages. Set the scene here before we go into talking about some healing energy around this high charge. Rebecca said, feel so in tune with what you're sharing, with what intuitively I'm currently passing through, and with Spirit's guidance. Oh, I'm so glad, Rebecca. Thank you for being here. Okay, Kuan Yin teaches the path of Karuna compassion. This is page 249 in the Sophia Code. I offer my story to reveal that all stories of compassion are the same story in the journey back home to the heart. All stories of compassion are the same story in the journey back home to the heart. All stories of compassion are the same story in the journey back home to the heart. So this also makes me want to say, like, you're not alone. Rebecca is here. We got Des here. We got Caroline here. We got Helen here. We got 8 people live. We'll have people coming in on the replay. We're all going through this activation. It looks different for each of us, but we're all going through massive spirit surgery, massive past life integration. And it is the time of higher self-embodiment. Like, the time is now. The last 2 years weren't random. Okay. Yeah, let's read this. Water directly taught me about the meaning of Karuna compassion. When I prayed into the water and ingested it, the water would flow to every darkness that my awareness was too afraid to touch out of shame or guilt. How often do we just let the unresolved anger exist in our body because we're too scared to touch that hurt? There's fear around touching that hurt because there's shame and there's guilt there that we're going to have to meet and we don't want to, so we just push it down, blah, blah. The more we push it down, let me tell you what I'm noticing. Our insides are on our outsides right now. The veils are very thin, and in some ways, like, whatever was able to be hidden in an old paradigm is no longer able to be hidden. It's going to seep out. It's going to show. So we actually can't escape this. And the truth is that we never could, but now we're just able to see it more clearly. There's less of a gap between the thought and the manifestation. Physical reality is louder because the veils are thinner. So just know that if there's resistance to self-compassion, if there's resistance to self-forgiveness, if there's resistance to healing, chances are you're dealing with some shame and guilt. And you don't have to hold that by yourself. That's why I'm calling in Kuan Yin as a mentor that you can work with in addition to your higher self. Okay. So when I prayed into the water and ingested it, the water would flow to every darkness that my awareness was too afraid to touch out of shame or guilt, when our human awareness is just scared. The tenderness of that, the realness of that, the preciousness, the innocence of that. I have full goosebumps. It was the water that carried my prayer everywhere I needed to reconcile the wounding within me. And so Kuan Yin is saying the water, and as Kuan Yin is talking about the water, they're talking about compassion. The waters of compassion. Compassion is a watery, anointing consciousness. The water was not afraid to go where I needed it to go for my healing. Therefore, the medicine of water is an excellent teaching vehicle for revealing the power of Karuna compassion. For there is nothing we have suffered that we cannot heal within ourselves, and Karuna is the medicine of unconditional compassion that is the power to heal us from every suffering. And I don't know about you, but my past lives as a mystic on this planet are so real in my body. I feel it in my throat. I feel it in my back. I think I've said before on the devotional drip, like, a lot of my healing work is pulling out swords and dealing with past persecution, this ancient persecution of the women in my lineage who have always been mystics, and men for that matter. And then the way that that same pattern showed up in my life in this lifetime. And Kuan Yin is telling us there is nothing that we have suffered that we cannot heal within ourselves. And Karuna is the medicine of unconditional compassion that is the power to heal us from every suffering. Compassion is the embodiment of understanding that something happened to us. And that something is still imprinted in our mind, body, and nervous system, and in our subtle bodies and our energy bodies. And so it makes sense that it continues to show up. And it will continue to present itself until we meet it. Some people go through this whole human life not knowing that what they're living is their coursework. You're here. We're in this conversation. Chances are you already know this. I'm just reminding something that you already know because you are a master. You have lived lives on this planet. I'm just going to say it. Anyone in the Blood, Bone, and Honey community, especially people who are tuning into this transmission, you are an earth angel. You are a light worker. You are ancient as fuck, and you have gifts, baby. You are psychic. You are so psychic. When we embody compassion and understand that, perhaps we were born highly gifted, highly spiritually intuitive, and maybe our environment wasn't conducive to that. And maybe it was called ADHD and maybe it was called all these things, but actually we're just multidimensional and mystical as fuck. When you acknowledge that for yourself, physical reality opens up and it becomes a playground. Because even though you were the victim potentially of abuse, you don't have to operate from a victim consciousness. That's not to say you also weren't the victim of abuse. It's both. It's both. And the only reason you don't live from a victim, not the only reason, but the first reason, the most important reason we don't want to live from a victim consciousness is because then we strip ourselves of our own joy, potential, play, and what's here for us. When we're in a victim consciousness, we're not aligned with prosperity. We're not aligned with potential. We are stuck in a story of the past. We are in this festering scorpion energy. We are resentful. We are bitter. We are jealous. Other people got there first and we're not there yet. And why are they at 6 figures and 1 million followers and I don't even know what I'm doing and I move? Scorpion energy. Medicine, the waters of compassion. So there's nothing that we have suffered that we cannot heal within ourselves. And Karuna is the medicine of unconditional compassion. That is the power to heal us from every suffering. The greatest of all suffering occurs when you refuse to have compassion for yourself as you are experiencing any kind of suffering. So that is so deep. That is so deep. The greatest of all suffering occurs when you refuse to have compassion for yourself as you are quite literally experiencing the suffering. So if you're in this scorpion energy and you're turning your back against yourself or you're judging yourself or you're telling yourself that you just need to do better, be better, pick yourself up off the floor, that consciousness within you is going to be like, fuck you. I am frustrated. I am angry. I am suffering. I am suffering right now. This feels like suffering in my body. I need this to be acknowledged. I need to it's been the vomit tears, y'all. It's like the slobbery, making the sound of the cry that you've never made in your life. And guess what? That's also a quantum healing because maybe that little being that didn't get to take up space in their cry is now opening up their throat through your adult, mature, higher self-embodiment. And again, that's the quantum healing. The why not me has been showing up a lot right now. Marissa says, yes. The I am not chosen. I don't belong. There's no space for me. Why is it easier for other people? Why is this so hard for me? Let me also say some potent shit. The more tender your path has been, the bigger the initiations into portals of grief and love simultaneously that you're being invited to meet, chances are the bigger your divine purpose is. So I'm going to leave that there. Because we're in an era now, I'm not going to leave that there. I'm actually going to say we're in an era now where, and I know I've said this to you before, Marissa, at one point we were persecuted for our wisdom. We were told that, this sort of capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal model of go to school, get the certification, get the letters after your name, go through this, and this, spend all of this money. And then finally, you'll be able to claim your divine inheritance, do here what you're supposed to do. You just have to suffer for all of this time and then you can. And all of those old agreements are getting wiped because now it's about our wisdom. And now these codes are trickling in from our past lives. We've been here before. However, physical reality is arranging itself around us, this ain't new. What is new, though, is the level of light hitting the planet, the codes hitting the planet, and how now we can embody our higher selves should we choose to walk that path. Fundamental ingredient, compassion. The Sanskrit root for compassion is Karuna. The definition of Karuna is to be so closely held by yourself that no separation can remain within you. So compassion and our connection to our higher selves and the divine and our willingness to give up the reins and the director wand, that all gets filled in. And instead of our mind and our ego being like, we need to do this, and this, and I need to do this, and this is how it's going to go, and here's the whole map, and here's the plan, it's like reorienting to wherever there's a gap in our consciousness, wherever we don't quite understand yet, we command that the only thing that's allowed to come fill that is the light and wisdom of our higher self and source, and it is rooted in deep compassion, which means that the self-talk that may be rooted in, we've got some root cards that I'm going to point to next, that may be rooted in a consciousness of self-hate, self-denial, self-doubt, that, get this, was learned. That was learned. Maybe this isn't even yours. This is what I was saying in the past lives card. Maybe things have been passed down to you from your lineage. What if your soul agreed to do this cleanup work? I just keep seeing all of us as the cleanup crew. Like, it's going to take some time to birth a golden age. What are you making it mean that you're here on planet Earth right now? At this moment of high sensation, of the underbelly revealing itself, of the tower crumbling. What are you making that mean about yourself? Are you making that mean you're a fucking badass goddess, witch, earth angel babe? Or is there an old story that may not even belong to you, that has a monopoly on your consciousness? Again, it's that scorpion energy. Kuan Yin is telling us that the definition of compassion is to be so closely held by ourselves that no separation can remain within us. And I have a theory. I don't really know if it's a theory. I have a premonition, intuition, feeling around how the suffering on this planet right now is rooted in the illusion of separation from the source of love that we come from, that we have to earn and prove our worthiness. And in the earning and proving is when all of the jealousy and the self-loathing and the hate and the doubt and the denial comes forward. And this is really old. This is really old and really ancient. We have been under white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist rule for longer than feels comfortable to admit in our blood and bones, because that means that the amount of unlearning and undoing work is deep and vast. And guess what? It's true. And if you want to really ignite your capacity to live and walk your highest path and highest divine purpose, compassion always has to be in your little medicine pouch. It's like you take your tincture of compassion anytime throughout the day where you start to feel that separation consciousness. It's the rewiring. It's like, oh, I'm starting to have a thought that I'm separate from love. I'm separate from source, that I need to prove, that I need to fix, that I need to control. Okay, this is a moment to take my compassion tincture. This is a moment to tune in and understand and remember and remind my humanity that I am divine. To embody compassion is to remind your humanity that you are actually divinity. So to refuse yourself this embrace when you're already suffering immeasurably amplifies the pain that you're experiencing. So again, we have the Scorpion card. It's going to amplify all of this old ancient shit. If you don't tend to it, it's going to get louder. It will only get louder. That's the code now. It will get louder until you tend to it. And as a human with a pattern of avoidance based on my past trauma that I'm healing currently, and did some big action as spell work around last week. Thank you to Action as Spell. That the code Action as Spell from my coach Des. The Rich Witch on Instagram. If you don't know who she is, she's incredible. I did that. So I'm not surprised. I did that last week. So I'm not surprised that my higher self and spirit are having me speak on it this week from a place of lived wisdom. It will keep showing up. And also, trust the divine timing. Taking action as spell is not about jumping and being in reactive action. What does responsive action look like? What does taking action after you've resourced yourself, perhaps in the cave? Last episode of the Devotional Drip, episode 13 for that. What does your action look like after you've resourced yourself with the waters of your own self-compassion? How do you then approach that challenging situation in your life when you've already validated your own pain? So you actually don't need that other person to validate your pain. What happens when you're unattached to how someone else responds or reacts, and you just are the authority of your own heart, and you decide that's enough to deal with? That's enough. I don't need to be doing all this out here because I got enough on my plate. And I'm going to take care of what's on my plate before I go looking around for other bits of food. It's right here. Your food is in front of you. Trust the timing. It's not about rushing, it's about listening. Again, we're not rushing, we're not forcing, we're not pushing. If a divine feminine awakening is happening on the planet, then that means it's about listening and receiving and embodying and revealing through embodying. Those are the tasks. Listening, receiving, embodying. Not fixing, not rushing, not forcing, not pulling, not building, not controlling, not contorting, not manipulating. None of that. Don't waste your gifts on that. Don't waste your psychic gifts on projection. Don't waste your capacity to vision and feel into the energetics of a situation on projection. Use those gifts to get clear in your own energy and space. So then you show up clear to your life. And you know that you're not alone. Again, the ego is remembering it's here to be in service to the heart. We're remembering that any separation within us is here to be filled by the light of source. Embodying Karuna compassion begins with learning how to love yourself first, holding all parts of yourself throughout every present moment and in every circumstance. It requires softening your heart to accept that the gift of your own Karuna compassion is the standard you deserve to experience in your relationship with yourself. I just said this to a couple people this weekend. Again, I've been like in the relationship council with other people. I've been in my own relationship council, personally, professionally, romantically. And what keeps coming forward is when you raise your standard of relating to your own heart and you clean up your own internal experience and all of those members of your inner committee, all of those voices, all of those past selves, your future self, your higher self, all the members of the inner committee, when you've raised the standard of your own inner relating, it's going to raise the standard in your relationships. And the relationships that are no longer meeting that standard are going to shed. And they're going to crumble. And you need to allow that to happen. Because to try to hold on tight is to go against the grain of God, Goddess, Source, straight up. You want to walk your highest path? Let it go. If it's meant for you, it will come back. The divine doesn't play tricks. There's no tests. But you will be asked to surrender and to humble your heart to receive guidance beyond where perhaps an addiction to suffering, codependency, and loyalty to an old past oath, vow, and agreement would take you. What's here for you now? Again, this is how we used to do things. Love that version of self. They did the best with what they could. Now, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. Okay. So it requires softening your heart to accept the gift of your own compassion as the standard you deserve to experience in your relationship with yourself. No one else's opinion. No one else's opinion. No one else's opinion is required to acknowledge, quantify, or qualify your authentic experience of suffering in order for it to be real for you. And in fact, most times what you're craving, and like, yes, to connection and sharing and Coventry, of course. And also, what happens when you hang up the phone? What happens when you then go back into your day and you have to meet your life? Are you carrying the way that you were fed in Coventry into your own relationship with yourself? Because at the end of the day, it's going to require your own acknowledgement to actually be healed. It's going to require your own validation in order to be healed. Practicing Karuna does not require, so practicing compassion, this is such good news. Practicing compassion does not require anyone else's approval or participation for you to receive the compassion that you deserve. Everything happening within you is here to be unconditionally honored. Everything, all expressions, especially the expressions that you judge as not holy or less than or dark or whatever, because the awakening of the divine feminine on the planet also means the awakening of the dark feminine. And the dark feminine's like, bitch, set the boundary. Because like, we're about to use that fire to create something. No more using that fire to burn your own ass. It's time to create. It's time to create. It's time to create. So all parts get honored. And Karuna compassion is taking the time to be present with your authentic experience and being kind to yourself in every way. The quantum healing energy of Karuna takes your awareness directly to the root belief systems of your original wounds so that you may love those places within you that feel abandoned and unlovable. For that is the magic of Karuna. It is the compassion within you that is willing to love what you believe is unlovable, unforgivable, or lacking within yourself. In the practice of Karuna compassion, your heart becomes your resource for receiving unconditional self-love and acceptance. Your greatest teacher for learning the importance of Karuna compassion is your inner child, who is also the face of your innocence. The voice of your inner child speaks from your heart, acting as a guardian angel. Ever thought about your inner child as a guardian angel? Well, now it's time. The sort of like infantilizing of the inner child is one of my biggest pet peeves, just by the way. I think it's representative of the way that we infantilize children and we don't act like they're these like radiant cosmic star beings that like just hit planet Earth that like haven't forgotten that they're separate from the multiverse. So the inner child actually holds the wisdom. And of course, we're parenting that consciousness, but your inner child is the face of your innocence and they are actually a teacher. So we don't need to infantilize our inner child. We don't need to boss them around. In fact, what a beautiful opportunity to practice the way that we parent, the way that we facilitate, the way that we lead. Whether you have children, want children, or you're leading a community, it's just another opportunity to activate our self-leadership. That's all inner child healing is. It's activating our self-leadership. So don't infantilize that little inner child. We got Marissa and Helen here who both have some deep wisdom codes on the children. And the children that are hitting the planet right now, let me tell you what, they're about to be the leaders of this golden age. So we can do our due diligence as the ones who will be elders for these children. I'm getting like, woo, full goosebumps moving through my body. And start relating to our own inner children like this now, and then watch the way that that shifts the way that we relate to children in the collective. Again, the task work and the coursework is always starting with our own hearts. Don't get distracted by social media telling you need to share this post and do this and blah, blah. Like, yes, engage and support the world in whatever way feels resonant for you, but don't do that and bypass your own heart and your own healing in the process. That's how we get this performative activism that people talk about, or this spiritual bypassing. It's actually when we bypass our own heart's call to have our own self-attention on it. So the voice of your inner child speaks from your heart, acting as a guardian angel for your commitment to bestow the karuna, the compassion of self-love upon yourself. When you're too enamored with social conditioning to give yourself the compassion that you deserve, it is your inner child who steps in to keep you honest. That's maybe when the blocks get thrown over and the clothes get thrown around the room and you start having this temper tantrum because there's something within you that hasn't been met. Like, tantrums aren't random. If you've ever seen a child have a tantrum, like there's something underneath that. And that expression of rage, just like it happens for us as adults, like this consciousness doesn't change. It just continues to evolve. Like there's typically some grief underneath that, or some sadness, or at least something that's asking to be met. There's something that's unheard. So again, we come back to the feminine, the divine feminine consciousness of listening. And we remember that in addition to the light, there's the dark of the divine feminine that invites us to integrate our shadow. And that may be parts of ourselves that we've been judging as not holy enough, not sacred enough, not mature enough, not light enough, not any enough, or any sort of like, you should be more here, we're doing with ourselves. That's a call to call in that like Kali Ma divine feminine consciousness to quite literally purify those thoughts. It's also like a green Tara, like I'm no longer going to consent to creating a hell on earth reality with my own consciousness. I'm going to resource the Karuna compassion of Kuan Yin. I'm going to resource the compassion and the capacity to listen of the feminine principle. This is outside of gender. We're not talking gender. We're talking principles of consciousness. I'm going to resource the divine feminine principle of consciousness of compassion. And I'm going to water those parts that I have deemed and judged and labeled as unlovable. So your inner child is stepping in to keep you honest. They're the teacher. And then you're the teacher. And again, you're relating master to master. Inner child, you are a master. Higher self, you're a master. How do we want to collaborate? See that collaboration, see that peace, see the way that there could be a war, right? Between the consciousness of our inner child showing up and our now self who thinks all these things need to be done. And when we're at war, because there's a lack of compassion, which means there's a lack of curiosity, which means there's a lack of understanding, that does emanate out onto planet Earth. And it's not about being scared or like, oh, I don't want to embody this. It's just like, no, this is all of our coursework. We're all in the mystery school of life together. Me giving this devotional drip, I just happen to be standing in as the TA for this lecture, but you're a master's student. So that's the way we're relating these days. That's what the call is right now. So sudden feelings of anger, disappointment, and sadness can all act as messengers from your inner child. Scorpion. When you are refusing to give compassion to yourself. So sudden feelings of anger, disappointment, and sadness can all act as messengers. Hello, little messengers from within, from your inner child when you're refusing to give compassion to yourself. Karuna is often described as the devoted, loving compassion that a mother has for her child. You can go back to resourcing. I forget that episode, what it was called. It was something about the inner mother and resourcing that. There's also a couple of drips about like divine love. Those would be great drips to revisit for that medicine specifically, for how to parent this part of our consciousness. The inner mother one was around the Pisces new moon. So that would actually be really potent to revisit that this week as we come to the end of Pisces season. If you are feeling really activated around wanting to resource like your inner parent, your inner mother consciousness. Karuna is often described as the devoted, loving compassion that a mother has for her child. I offer to you that embodying this definition begins with you becoming the inner mother and father to your own inner child. In the journey of parenting yourself, you will come to find that it is your own innocence that knows the exact words and self-loving actions that you need to receive from yourself, that you need to receive from yourself, that you need to receive from yourself, not from someone else, from yourself. Even if I'm here being like, let yourself receive this healing, I can only say that. You are the one who exhales and then inhales the receiving, because it is your sovereignty, because this is all about activating your sovereignty. Higher self-embodiment is about activating your sovereignty. So it is your own innocence that knows the exact words and self-loving actions that you need to receive from yourself for healing your deepest wounds. When your inner child is honored with Karuna compassion, they will eventually reveal themselves as the Phoenix child within you, which is key code 444 of the Sophia code. And it's deep that it's the 14th today and it's episode 14. Whoa, I just realized that. Woo! The Phoenix child is the invincible embodiment of your innocence that was never harmed in your suffering. Key code 444 is your own angelic nature that arises again and again from the ashes of the past with the power to unconditionally love yourself and all others, with the wisdom of compassion that has survived within you. So again, like if your inner child was wounded, what the Sophia code is saying, that there's this aspect of your innocence, there's this aspect of your consciousness, the Phoenix child, is what the Sophia code is referring to, this aspect of your consciousness as. And it's the aspect that was actually never harmed in your suffering. It's the way that your heart, again, can feel broken, but your heart never actually breaks, because your sovereign connection with the divine means that you're never separate from the holy womb that birthed your consciousness and your soul. So even if it feels like consciousness and love isn't available, that's just part of the viral programming and conditioning. That's part of your coursework, to heal, to do some healing around. And I love this piece around like your innocence knows the exact words and self-loving actions, because sometimes what I'll notice around, if I'm journaling or I'll invite a client to journal around something, there's almost like a judgment that what's coming through isn't advanced enough. And again, like it's like listening to a child share their wisdom, and you're like, instead of listening, you're trying to like infer or guess what they're trying to say, or instead of listening, like you're telling them what they're saying. It's like, no, like this is about learning to listen, because we also need to learn how to listen to other people. That is also all of our coursework. And it's so hard to do that when we're not listening to our own selves, because it's like, why would I listen to this other person when I'm not listening to my own heart? It's like something doesn't compute, and that separation feels alive. So That's all I'm going to speak from this passage in the Sophia Code. I'm going to say, when you practice holding yourself with great tenderness, you eventually become whole in your relationship with yourself. You trust yourself. Emotional safety becomes an established foundation within you. You're no longer looking to like create safety within the relationship, because you've created safety within yourself. So then you can adjust based on however the relationship is shifting, because you're a safe place for your own heart. We can't actually do that within a container. Like, we can have agreements for a container, but it takes two to tango. So like, if you're minding your own sovereignty and practicing being a safe space for yourself, you're then going to magnetize in other people who are also doing that. And it's going to be clear who in your life isn't doing that. And again, let the tower crumble, let it fall. Do you trust your higher self and God, Goddess, Source enough to know that whatever is crumbling is here to reveal what is meant for you? And that, again, it is from the ashes that the phoenix rises. So let it fall, let the rubble and let the crumble be a part of the kingdom that you're creating within you. You're going to use all that rubble. You're going to turn it back into, whatever material to then build the new foundation, but you have to let it fall first. If there's something you're not allowing fall, if there's something you're holding on to, let it fall now. Drop it. Drop it. And then ask Spirit to reveal to you the next step on the path. Ask your higher self to reveal to you what is next. What happens when you wipe the whiteboard of all of your plans and you let the divine show you what's for you? That's being in a co-creative, collaborative relationship with life. And when we're in frustration, when we're in jealousy, when we're in resentment, when we feel like we haven't gotten the thing that's meant for us, then we block ourselves from the thing that's actually trying to move towards us. And what I want to say right now is that I think it was Big Empress Energy, who I love on Instagram, Clementine, who said March smells like money. And that energy has been present in my field too. So does April. Like, it smells like abundance. But the abundance of the fountain, this is another card. It was actually turned upside down. This can only come through. It can only come upright when we surrender to open to it. And we're not going to know what it looks like. And that's actually part of cultivating our faith. You cultivate faith in the darkness. You cultivate faith from a place of admitting that you don't know. And then you find the sweetness in actually not knowing, and you start to come into a relationship with life where surprise feels sovereign and holy and sacred, and you wouldn't want to miss out on the surprise of what's there for you. Because it's so much better than what the wounded places within you that are still trying to heal could conceive for your life. And there's been a lot of invitation for me recently to open up to my next vision, my highest vision. Like, what do I want next? Where do I want to go? And where I keep landing is wherever it is, I'm not the conductor. And that doesn't mean that I'm not responsible and I'm not a leader for my own life. I am. And also, I've understood that part of my I am presence is surrendering to the greater I am. And all of me cannot be shoved into this human body. So I'm going to need to open up to something greater that I am a part of. And I want to be in relationship with that energy. And be clear about the kind of energy you want to be in relationship with. Are you in relationship with a consciousness that is rooted in unconditional divine love? Or are you in relationship with a universe that tests you, that challenges you, that's playing games with you, the universe? It's like, that's actually not the deal, y'all. There's actually no tests. And that testing consciousness is also part of the paradigm that's falling. There's only lessons and blessings. And you can reach out to your higher self and the divine as many times a day as you want. That's actually not codependent. That's actually incredibly sovereign. To drop into prayer, breath, and meditation as many times a day as you need to reorient and realign yourself. Like that is our great get to. So there's a lot of new age programming and stuff in the spiritual space about the universe testing, blah, blah, blah. Wipe it. It's old paradigm stuff, y'all. The toxic masculine tests. You want to live in alignment with that paradigm? Or do you want to live in alignment with the paradigm of creation that's flowing through now, that's only ever giving you what you can hold in order to bring you closer in alignment with your highest good, your highest path, and your highest timeline? This journey is a constant reorientation. I veered a little this way, okay, back. Okay, I veered a little this way, okay, back. And in the veering, no judging when you lose your way in the woods. Because what if that too is a part of something you needed to find? Maybe you needed to go find a mushroom. Maybe that wasn't on the path. Maybe your higher self had to take you over there a little bit so you could see yourself. Maybe there was, which is actually so deep, because in the Sophia Code, Kuan Yin's journey is actually like she runs away to the woods, and then her divine twin flame counterpart finds her and then supports her in her healing, which also represents her own inner divine masculine coming through to hold the space, to create the container, whatever. So you can go all into the Sophia Code with that if you want to. But no judging when we veer, no judging when the past self shows up. There's what I want to say right now is there's going to be flip-flopping between the old timeline and the new timeline. And it's going to be like, whoa, that's some really old stuff that I'm doing. That's that action that I'm taking right now, or that thought that I'm having, is in alignment with actually an outdated self-concept and identity that I thought I grew out of. Whoa, I guess there's still some healing to be done here. Don't be so surprised. Be curious instead. Be curious about why. Because your curiosity is going to lead you to understanding, and the understanding is going to lead you to the compassion. And activating your compassion is part of ascension. You can't actually ascend, you can't grow, you can't heal without compassion. And any compassion that you're having, that you are radiating out for someone else in your life, is coming from your own well. So resource that well with some water. This is a long one today. Oh my gosh, it's 1:14. 1:14 on the 14th, key code 444, 111 on our time. Y'all, this is clear. Okay, next card. We got a couple more. I'm going to buzz through these. I'm going to have an intention to be done at 1:30. My time, which is another 15 minutes. So our next card that came forward, where did I put it? I've been throwing cards around. Oh, here it is. Our next card that came forward is consciousness. So I'll show you this. I love this so much. And it's interesting. I actually didn't notice that. Look how it's coming up in the third eye. So I'm going to be teaching more about this in the spring, moving into the summer as well. But I have this channeled multidimensional self-care framework called the 7 Pillars of Higher Self-Embodiment, that were formerly called the 7 Sacred Embodiment Pillars. And I just taught from this framework last weekend in Journey and Download. And it's interesting that in the third eye, we have this activation going up into the upper realm, and it's pointing to consciousness, because what I've tracked for pillar 6, which is also connected to the third eye, in order to activate our capacity to see beyond illusion, see beyond the veil, see beyond programming. It's going to require us to activate our own self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and ultimately acceptance. Acceptance of what we've lived through, the validation that shit was painful, the validation of anything right now that's painful, and also how powerful we are. And through watering ourselves with compassion, it actually puts us in touch with our power, our capacity to hold space for ourselves. So the integration right now is self-acceptance. I've been walking through that integration. It was fiery. It was very Scorpion-like. So if your front brain is feeling overheated, if there's a lot of processing you've been doing, I said this last time for the cave. This was actually literally the asana that was in my animal oracle book that I pulled for the crocodile. We talked all about going inward to recharge your light before reapproaching the world or whatever is in front of you right now. Makarasana pose. Hands like this on the forehead. Lay your belly on the ground. So your whole front body will be on the earth. Your hands are on your forehead, so you have space to breathe. and practice inhaling and exhaling. You can practice that full exhale out, releasing all of the old carbon dioxide. I'm just going to keep saying this on every drip until I get millions of emails telling me that people are doing this. And then really, really practice receiving the inhale as a symbol of what you're ready to receive, as a symbol of getting in touch with your power that is so multidimensional. When you receive an inhale, that puts you in touch with the fact that the multiverse is breathing you. God, Goddess, Source, the divine is breathing you in every moment. And so that can activate our capacity to forgive, to lay it down on the altar, and also understand if we come from that much power, then wow, we must be powerful too. So that's what wants to come through around this consciousness. It is an upper chakra thing. We got the 8th, the 9th, and it seems like it keeps going up. The 8th, the 9th, and then there's a flower that sprouts. So this to me is pointing to like 7th plane. Go back to 7th plane. 7th plane consciousness is source consciousness. We have 5th plane ascended master, Christed Buddha consciousness. Masters like Kuan Yin who have walked the earth, embodied their higher self on behalf of healing all of humanity, embodied their own heaven on earth reality as a symbol of what humanity is moving into. It's that bodhisattva consciousness in the 5th plane. Then we have 6th plane, universal law. This is like law of attraction, law of cause and effect. You can Google all the universal laws. And then above universal laws is the 7th plane. So yes, universal laws, and also source is bigger than that. So you can always go all the way back to that original light. And like this first past lives card said about the AM and PM hygiene, what did it exactly instruct us to do? This card invites you to imagine yourself bathed in a golden light and ask your angels and guides to heal you while you sleep. I actually had a really profound vision a couple weeks ago when I was walking a dear sister through something really intense. I was woken up at like 4 a.m. It felt like Mary Magdalene. And I was just shown this vision of the planet, and whatever part of the planet was still like in darkness and like sort of in like sleep mode. I saw like everyone's, like all of these sleeping bodies, like illuminated with this golden glow, and like this team of like guides, like working on all of these subtle bodies, like all of the layers of the subtle body and the energy body. And so that was a vision that I had. Take that. Maybe you've had a similar vision. Take what resonates, leave the rest always. But what I saw was like that golden light very specifically trickling through our subtle bodies and then eventually into our light body DNA, our spiritual DNA, which then, anything happening in the physical body has already happened in the energy bodies and the subtle bodies. So there's this imprinting of consciousness happening. And what I also want to say about this is like, allow it to happen. Like allow your roots to get watered. Look at this like divine hand gardening with this spade. You don't have to do all of this. Your job is to exhale. Your job is to surrender. With that perfectionist energy of the scorpion, it makes me want to say, like, stop overworking. You're doing too much. Do less, surrender, and then watch what happens. Do less, do less, do less, do less. Around especially the things that feel high charge. This consciousness card also may denote a teacher of science, arts, or wisdom-based tradition. That's what it says on the card specifically. So yes, do less. Yes, let the waters of the divine move through your roots. It's from root to crown and from crown to root. We are receiving from all directions. I am open to receive from the highest light from all directions. Anything resonating below a 7th plane frequency, not invited in my space. Anything resonating below a source frequency, no, we're not doing it anymore. And it's like that level of priestess purification is what I'm getting. It's like this spade card is the next one. Gardener of your own life. You have wisdom. You know how to do this healing work. So it's this divine dance you're doing between your own soul and higher self wisdom, and then allowing yourself to receive from your guides, from your wise and well-healed ancestors. Everybody has wise and well-healed ancestors. From your wise and well-healed ancestors, and then from source. And look at that trinity. Look at that trinity. Source, your higher self, wise and well-healed ancestors. In your garden. We've had a lot of garden metaphors coming through recently on the devotional drip, and that was really our theme for Journey and Download as well. It's a time of planting, it's a time of tending, and it's also a time of harvesting, what nurtures you. Utilize the tools that will make your vision attainable. So wherever you got to dig in, it's like, again, I'm just getting like, and I just moved through a really intense initiation myself. So I know it's high charge out there, and I pulled the scorpion, like we know it's high sensation. So what I want to say is like, resource all your tools. All the tools. It's actually such a beautiful opportunity to activate all of your gifts and activate all of your senses. And the way that we can practice getting in touch with our psychic energy is to be in touch with our senses, actually, and to resource our breath and our smell and our sight, and then also our inner sight, and then also this multidimensional third eye vision that follows accepting that we're powerful and we deserve the support that we're craving. Sometimes I'll find like in the third eye, an unworthiness can also come up. Like if you can't see, if you feel disconnected from your gifts, check that unworthiness, check that shame, check that guilt, water that with some compassion so you can utilize your tools. You are a seer, you are a feeler. So see and feel and smell and taste and touch and pray and water and surrender and open to receive. Okay? That's what the spade card is saying. It also says it may indicate a helpful ally, your higher self, and also maybe it's time for a coach, for a mentor, for a new therapist, for a healing session. Maybe it's time to phone a friend. Whatever that is for you, who's your ally? Who are your allies that you're bringing forward on the next part of your path? Again, I am going to be opening enrollment for private mentorship. I only take a couple of people at a time. I haven't officially opened enrollment yet, but that's approaching. So if you are interested in receiving some one-on-one support, whether it be in a one-on-one session or within a private mentorship container, shoot me an email, Sarah with an H at bloodboneandhoney.com, and we'll get connected before I open that up to the wider Blood, Bone, and Honey community. So get support, call in team, let the people in your life know what's up. Let the people in your life know what's up. Let yourself receive the support and create the support that you need. Let yourself receive the support. So that's a feminine principle, and also activating the divine masculine principle of creating the support that you need. Create the support, receive the support. It's both. Maybe that creating of the support is saying like making that phone call. Again, it doesn't have to be like a lot of action. A lot of action doesn't necessarily denote wisdom. Sometimes it can denote busyness. There's almost like a precise energy I feel called to invite you into. Like, be precise about it, be contained about it, really tune into that wisdom and be like, who are my allies right now? What's my inner circle? Who am I sharing the harvest of my revelations with? If Instagram is the first place you go to do that, y'all, that's a trap for light workers. Let me tell you what, the public processing on Instagram before you process with your own heart, it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a pathway. It's a pathway for sure. But it's also, it will lead you to that dead end in the labyrinth, not because you're doing something wrong, but because there's a depth of presence that your heart actually wants, and sharing it with a bunch of strangers on the internet, even if they are your Instagram friends, isn't going to hit the spot like Karuna compassion is going to hit the spot. And that's just what it is. So let yourself receive the support you need, create the support you need, and the season is changing. So what's your flow now? I've been feeling like there's like a lot of charge around relationships and a lot of charge around routine, because there's been so much transformation that's happened in these last 2 years. So this is really where we can resource our higher self permission to create change in our relationship, and to create change in our habits and our patterns and our routines. And that change that we're creating is going to be a result and a symptom of the change that we create within our own hearts first. So let yourself be in an experimental process with that, and know that the season is changing, and this is happening in a very physical way on the earth. And also, like, there's sort of like a changing of the guards energetically happening. And there is this sort of like handing over, like, our humanity is merging with our higher self. I want to say, like, I don't want to say quick, I don't want to say fast, because that feels like too like third dimensional. I want to say, like, there's a greater capacity outside speed, outside time and space, to like form this bond in a conscious way. That's what wants to come forward. You are able to now form a deeper relationship with your higher self with more ease. There's that ease code coming in from before. So utilize that. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to dig up some old roots and resource the waters of compassion pouring from the fountain into, look at this, your crown. The waters of compassion, pouring down to the charge of the scorpion. And then I almost want to, you know, the fountains on the top? I want to show you this. Look at that. If the fountain was on the top, look at the water going all the way through. This came through in a private mentorship session last year, where someone was really dealing with like an old story, an old ancient pain. It was a pain that had showed up in this lifetime in their childhood in a very real way. And also this was like a pattern in their lineage as well that they were coming to heal within themselves on behalf of their past and future lineage. And the image that came through, sometimes when I'm channeling for people, it won't come through like words, it'll come through like drawings. And it actually came through like those cards where sometimes practicing compassion for the first time around something that we haven't given that depth of awareness to can feel and look like pouring water on like an electrical wire. And there can be these sparks that happen, and there almost can be this like bucking back of your ego and your humanity that's like, no, like, you shall not pass. We're not going here, because your nervous system has protected that part within you for so long. It's been a no-go zone. And now you're going into like the taped up, boarded up parts in your consciousness. We don't go here. We just pretend like this doesn't exist. And you're going in there. I have, again, goosebumps all over my legs. And you're so brave. You're so brave. You're so brave for doing that. What a leader you are. What a light worker you are. Light work. It is work. Light work. Dig up the roots, water the new ones. And if there's sparks happening, if there's this pushback that's happening where, well, I don't want to believe that, and I don't know if I believe if magic and the divine are real, and I'm not quite so sure about this love thing. If the love was actually real, then why is there all this, hate on the planet? I'm going to say, like, the Sophia Code is your book, boo. Come into private mentorship if you'd like. And also, like, just let that consciousness crumble. There is an addiction to suffering on this planet. It exists within all of us, or it would no longer exist on the planet, because we're connected by these root systems of consciousness. This also feels very like brain to me, neural network, neural pathway. And when you water those neural pathways, let's say there's like a really charged one, sort of like that image that came forward with one of my clients last year. And I didn't really even like finish telling that story, so I'll use that here now. So I was drawing these roots, and it was like there was like all this charge around it, and then again the water created that spark. It created this pushback, but eventually you pour the water on the tender parts enough, and the wire goes out, and the charge releases, and there's no more charge. And that is why, yes, healing is nonlinear, and also to be healed is possible. And that may seem simple, it was huge for my consciousness to acknowledge, like, to ask myself, do I actually believe that a full healing is possible? Do I believe that healing is possible? And because I have experienced it in my body, I do. But it's hard to access that in consciousness when it hasn't happened in the body. And also, it is through practicing a devout faith and really having a higher self authority around what you believe the nature of life to be, that will then allow you to take the vulnerable and brave action that actually creates the deepest healing, where you're doing the things that terrify you. Um, because chances are, if there's all this heat and charge scorpion style, then that thing is scary for you. And that's okay. Um, so we're watering these roots. Let the waters pour. Let your roots get watered. Let that root charge get watered with your tears of acknowledgement. Surrender what's too heavy to hold alone. When you give up the steering wheel, that's when you start to align with your highest path. Last two, fountain. I've pulled this one up a couple times already, and this was pulled reversed. So I like that because I like that the water is dumping into the roots, and also be mindful of where there's a resistance to receiving the water. Where is there a resistance to receiving the waters of your compassion? Where is that do not go boarded up area in your consciousness? That's the coursework right now. We're all being invited to the do not enter zones, where we've taped it up and said, I'm not dealing with that. I'm just going to accept that that's a part of my pain that I'm going to have to hold for the rest of my life. And you get to choose that. We all have our own sovereign choice, but if you want to heal that, resource these waters. Surrender to allow it flow. Oftentimes, I've said this before, the healing happens on the other side of the sacred tantrum that you let yourself have. Do not deny yourself the expression of emotion. Do not deny yourself the expression of water. It's Pisces season still. Cry it out. Cry it all out. Again, so by the time we get to Aries season, you can utilize the light side of Aries. You can utilize that fire to create. There's this card in one of my other decks, in my Mother Piece deck, that always reminds me of Aries, and it's like this little baby human being busting out of this eggshell, and like all of this energy around it, and it is like this new year energy, this start of a new cycle. So if we're coming up to a start of a new season, then that would mean that this next week is going to really, really invite us to lay down the bones of what's no longer serving, so we can compost that to create new life. Let the tears show you. Let your emotion show you. Your emotion and your feeling holds wisdom. Let it show you where you're ready to go. Journaling is always a really great way to sort of see what that is for you. Maybe you just start journaling around that. And as always, I'll give you prompts, journal prompts and movement prompts in the replay email. It'll be up on the Blood, Bone, and Honey blog. If you're not a part of the newsletter and you want that, link below. And if you tune into this, and it's not like this week, you can always find the corresponding movement, journal prompts, and playlist. If you if you type in the name of the Devotional Drip on YouTube in the Blood, Bone, and Honey blog on bloodboneandhoney.com, you'll find the corresponding blog post with your prompts. So just know that for the future too. And that also goes for if you're going back to a past episode. Like I mentioned a couple on this one. Last episode, episode 13, the cave would be a great one for this. And then whatever the one about the inner mother is, again, I forget the name of the episode, but those are two great ones. And if you watch that and then want the prompts, look it up on the blog. You'll find it by the name on YouTube. Okay. Fountain. Cooling elixir, a state of flowing energy, grounding and refreshing, the discovery of a gift that provides sustenance for your journey. Through surrender, you'll receive a gift. That is literally what this card says. So through surrender and asking your higher self, your guides, your source, and ancestors to guide you, the blessings will then reveal themselves. And know that the blessing is always in the lesson. The blessing is always in the lesson. Blessings tend to show up as lessons, especially for cleanup crew, especially for light workers, especially to those of us who made a soul agreement to clean up some consciousness and purify ourselves from the inside out of intrusive thoughts, of viral programming, of the belief that we're separate from source. The illusion of separation, the illusion of separation in the third eye. It's an illusion. It's not real. We can break out of that. Some people call that the matrix. And you can ask it, command it as a sovereign creator to be so. You can ask, you can command as a sovereign creator that it be so, that you receive the blessing, that this lesson brings you to the altar of your blessings, that you ask. I mean, the amount of times in the past, couple of weeks, yes, but last 2 years, I've been in the prayer of like, God, Goddess, Source, Higher Self, like reveal to me, show me, guide me, like may your eyes be my eyes so that I can see beyond illusion. I don't want to control. I don't want to conduct. I want to surrender, and I want to walk in devotion and discipleship, self-discipline, to my own higher self calling to embody more love. That is all of our divine purposes. We all share that same divine purpose. And again, then we have different things that our soul wants to express based on our gifts. So practice connecting to that sovereign connection to the foundational course curriculum that we're all in, which is to embody more love. And then watch the way that through plugging back into that energy, your gifts and divine solutions are revealed from within you. You can ask for it to be so. You can command for it to be so as a sovereign creator. So if you're not seeing the blessings, if wisdom isn't showing up, how often are you asking for it? And are you asking from a place of fear, or are you asking from a place of, well, fear is fine. Are you asking from a place of, Spirit, how does this want to come through? Are you asking from a consciousness of control, or are you asking from a consciousness of surrender? If you're asking from a consciousness of control, you can interpret however the messages, the signs, the symbols, the cards come forward, the way that physical reality is arranging itself around you to communicate back to your consciousness what's happening. That's physical reality revealing itself to you, because we really are all in a simulation, and I think we can just agree on that by now. So when you go to pull the oracle card, when you go to sit in meditation or prayer, surrender the control, surrender the need to know. And also stop practicing the worst possible outcomes. This brings me back to the past lives card. Recently, I was just talking to my husband about this yesterday. It's like, yes, to like our dream state revealing to us what's happening on a subconscious level about what we're healing from past lives and in our ancestral lineage. And also, how are you using the energy of your daydreaming? When you daydream, when you're maybe just scrolling on Instagram, if you're in any moment of like tuning out, and how do I want to say this? It's like, be mindful of the numbing versus actual rest and restoration. I fucking love scrolling on TikTok and all this shit and watching Netflix and all the things. But what's the intention? Spells are based on intention. What is your intention? What is your intention? And when you are daydreaming and you are just kind of zoning out and tuning out, your mind is still following something. What trail of thought are you following? What are you practicing in consciousness? What is the quality and the texture of your daydreams? Are you contributing to like an apocalyptic timeline through your capacity to vision and imagine? Or are you acting like you are a high priestess, radical magician, cosmic multidimensional being here to divinely disrupt the old paradigm as it has been in order to create space for what wants to be now? So especially if you're a visionary, what are you practicing in your daydreams? Where are you letting the mind wander? What stories and potential future realities are you entertaining? Where are you giving, this is good, the currency of your consciousness? How do I want to say this? I almost wanted to say like, forget money, but like, yes to abundance. But for real, forget money. Like, your consciousness is your ultimate currency. And in fact, like, whatever your consciousness is aligned to is how you're going to create abundance. So if you're in a story that you can't, it's not possible. One that's been coming up for me recently is, I almost want to point to what Marissa said around like, what did you say, Marissa? You said, and I know it's 1:42, we're way over. You said, why not me has been showing up a lot right now. Yeah, that like, I got left behind consciousness. It's so depressing. It's so depressing and it's so tender. And the more we practice it, the deeper we get in the hole and the farther we have to climb out. So when it comes to what you're practicing in consciousness, be humble, surrender, open to receive, and then act in alignment with what it is that you receive. And just keep practicing that over and over again. And eventually the quality of what you allow your consciousness to receive becomes greater. And just like what came through before, when you shift the texture of relationship with your own heart and your own self, you shift your relationship with all other living beings and your life. But it starts inside. So if you're stuck in some scorpion energy of the past, it's going to be hard to see. It's going to be hard to see. And that's why the call is honesty and forgiveness. That's why the call is surrender. That's why the call is revealing yourself to yourself. Our last card is Chantal, the romance angel. This card is so funny. Yas, queen, come through with the purple wings. So if you've been hungering for more romance, passion, intimacy, and connection, and I'm also hearing the quality piece, like you've been wanting a depth of a different kind of quality within your relationships. Again, this is going to start with your own heart. And it's also going to come from, if something is out of resonance, if a relationship is out of resonance with where you are and where you're going, let it go, set it free. If it's meant to come back, it will. Let that person go on their own journey. Bless them. Bless them. When I set a boundary last week and I sat down to send the email, and I really was in my like Karuna compassion, it almost felt like, not that like I said, I don't like tests, but it did feel like final exam energy for my own consciousness. Like, am I going to show up for myself at this depth? Am I really going to let myself have this? And I did. And when I did it, what I heard as I was like jumping timelines was, I come in love and I go, was it I come in peace and I go in love? It was either I come in love and I go in peace, or I come in peace and I go in love. That's what it was. I come in peace and I go in love. Because when we don't need someone else to do a thing for us in order to, we can come in peace and go in love. And that does not mean that we do not express our anger. That does not mean that we water down the fire so much that we don't actually get out our truth. We let that thread of conviction lead us to what needs to be spoken. But I've said this before and I will say it again. Do not approach what feels high charge in your life without approaching your own heart first. Get clear first. Get clear with you first. Because guess what? All of your sovereign relationships in the future are also going to ask the same. It might not be the same high charge. You might actually have that lover you've been calling in arrive, or that friendship or that community or that client or whatever it is for you, that coach, that energy of that new relationship wants to come in, but it's always coming in to match the frequency and texture of relationship you have with your own heart. Physical reality is here to mirror you back to you so that you can learn, grow, and evolve. That is the code. So practice holding a standard with your own heart. imprint that standard in all of your relationships. And also, I'm going to say it again, when someone shows you who they are, where they are, believe them. We are all being called to embody our higher selves. We are all being called to relate master to master. All of our consciousnesses are going to buck back against that in some way. And then you may find in some of your relationships, like there's not even an awareness that that's happening, that that's an option. And you start to speak two different languages. And this is where, people have been talking about like the new earth or whatever. And I truly believe that this is just going to be based on the way that we're relating with our own hearts and each other. And so the course work is always going to be starting with our own hearts. Again, when we honor our own sovereign journey of healing, we don't try to get too involved in other people's, and we let them walk their own path. Chantal, this angel card, says that her trademark characteristic is that she creates a very strong feeling in your heart and then surrounds it with warmth, like she's giving you a hug. That tends to be also like what my higher self feels like in my own heart. So that feels like a call to just like really know that there's always this warmth emanating from within, even if your consciousness feels cold, even if your brain feels overheated. It's the peace, it's the love, it's the compassion, it's the innocence, it's the grace, it's the reconciliation, it's the healing that passeth all understanding, because it's beyond what we can see, it's beyond what we can perceive. And these codes have been on the planet, and also there's new codes, and there's a whole slew of awakened beings that are willing to embody this now. So things are changing. They're changing quickly. That doesn't mean you need to move fast. It actually means when things are moving fast and a lot is happening, the depth of presence needs to actually deepen. You need to anchor into the heart of the earth and anchor into the heart of the divine. Inhaling up energy, exhaling down, receiving. Inhaling, receiving, exhaling, releasing, and receiving at the same time. That new light washes in, that new breath washes in, and it simultaneously rinses out. It rinses out and pours out. Let it pour out. Don't get short stopped at the charge. I feel like I went through this last year in such a real way, or the last couple of years, or so many times, so that I could speak to it. And that's always how it goes. With healers, with light workers, like again, the wisdom codes are back. And so if you're here to teach, if you're here to be a leader, then get motherfucking ready for the path witch, because it's gonna be spiralic and it's going to be surprising. And something that I really deeply practiced last year was a conscious practice of grieving. Some of you may know I had the honor of being my grandfather's death doula. And prior to that, my higher self actually guided me through a death of my own self. I had like a huge shadow integration this time last year, a huge inner child healing. And also around this time, the year before, I feel like this time of year, it just really happens right before Aries season. And what I learned from that time, and you can go look at some reels on my Instagram for like physical representations of this, is like, I remembered how to cry, how to sob, how to scream, how to touch base with those places within me that were just ridden and wrecked with pain and shame and regret and loss. And it was through physically embodying that and letting myself really actually cry. Like I'm talking crumble to the kitchen floor. I am embodying the tower card level grieving. That is the embodiment practice right now. And it's almost scary. There's almost like I recognize that like when you let yourself feel that deeply, whether it be joy or pain or love or grief, there's like it's like your consciousness says like, we haven't gone here before, and let what's new be new. Let what's unfamiliar be familiar. Another code that's been coming through is growth doesn't need to be safe. Stop over attaching to safety. You're here to be a safe space for yourself. Don't command the world or other people to be a safe space for you, because you will be disappointed. It's a waste of your energy. Create safety within your own heart and then embody the vibration of safety and security within relationship. and then watch how physical reality arranges itself around you. Again, this doesn't mean we need to hold it all, but it is a call to be radically responsible for our own hearts. This is higher self-embodiment. And if any part of your consciousness is bucking up against that, I honor that. I get it. My consciousness has bucked up against these teachings so many times for so many lifetimes, and that's why this is part of my purpose in this life. And I speak from love, and I also speak from lived pain and the wisdom of that. So, take care of your sweet self. This was a long drip today. I'm just going to trust that we needed it. And whenever I say we have 15 minutes left, I exist out of time and space. So never trust me when I say that. I'm just going to stop saying that. That's some old programming of mine where I need to let people know what's happening. It's we're going to chill on that. And Sophia Code, great tool for this time. What a great spade to have in your garden. I will send out the replay this afternoon. I love you all. Thank you for spending this time with me. It is always such an honor. I know that today was fiery. And I also hope that you got some deep waters. Thank you to all of your comments on the live feed. It's so helpful to know how and where this is hitting you. Big hugs to you too, Marissa. Third eye of the storm. Yes, third eye of the storm. It is integration time. Be mindful of where you're giving the currency of your consciousness. And fill yourself up with love. Let yourself get resourced in your body and breath. Dance around a little bit. The March practice playlist is lit. I update it every week just because I get inspired with new music that I find. So check that out. And I'll see you on the gram. I'll see you in your inbox. And if you're looking for one-on-one coaching, mentorship, support, let me know so I can get you on my calendar before I open it up to the wider Blood, Bone, and Honey public. Again, I only take a couple of people at a time because we really go in. So whether you're looking for an intensive one-on-one or you're looking for a longer container, reach out, let me know, let's talk, let's see if this is the aligned fit for you. And I'm sending so much love. Big blessings to you too, Rebecca. Always such a joy to see you here. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Des. Thank you, Caroline. I love all of you and everyone else who's here live. Many blessings. I'm hugging all of your faces, all of your hearts, surrounding you in golden light, golden honey light, infusing into the bones like a river running through you. May this light purify you from the inside out. You are so strong. You are so brave. Thank you for your willingness. Thank you for your devotion. Thank you for showing up and embodying your higher self. It is no easy task. We are in this together, wing to wing. I'll see you next week. I love you. I love you. Mwah. Bye, y'all.